Welcome to the Fearlessly Inspired podcast. We are two military veterans ready to lead, empower, and inspire women in all areas of life. We are proof that your past doesn't have to define you and your circumstances don't have to hold you back. We are your hosts, Courtney and Barbara. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, listeners. We are so happy to be here yet again to discuss an important topic with you today, which is growth. Barbara and I have been having conversations about growth after listening to one of our favorite mentors and leaders, Dr. John C. Maxwell. So we were both introduced to him on separate occasions over the last few years. I was actually introduced to him through leadership conferences. I actually saw him twice in a row. And a friend of mine, I found out, was a part of the John Maxwell team, so I inquired about it. I eventually decided to join the John Maxwell team, and I'm currently finishing up my certification to become a certified speaker, coach, and teacher. So, Barbara, when were you first introduced to John?
So I actually took a leadership course where John Maxwell's books were used as the source of the training. Really, ever since then, I've listened to his 1-minute leadership chats that he has and his podcast. However, I would say since you started your certification program, I've really been doing a little bit more of a deep dive into his training, which has really brought us to this discussion in growth.
So let's talk about the recent podcast. The podcast is actually called The 4 Keys to Growth. And John was talking about how each stage of life requires more than just being a year older. Being another year older really isn't an accomplishment, but the growth within that year is what should be celebrated. So do you reflect on your growth over the last year when it's your birthday or a different time?
So I actually reflect usually at the beginning of the year. I, kind of reflect on what's happened in the past year and kind of what my goals are for the upcoming year. However, I would say that for this past year, I did reflect on my 40th birthday. I did some, reflecting of what I've accomplished over the last 40 years and kind of set my goals, kind of to move forward. As I listened to John's podcast about growth this past week, he really spoke about spending time in the month of December so that when January comes, you're already ready to act. And so this year, I definitely want to incorporate that into my end of the year vision board goals, time that I spend to get myself ready to act when January 1st is really here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely do not reflect on my birthday, and I do the same thing. I reflect more at the beginning of the year as well. Like the rest of the universe, we reflect as the new year comes in, and we reflect on the past year, and then I usually choose a word for the new year. Do you choose a word?
It's actually interesting because this is the first year that I chose a word. Because I don't know why I've never done it before, but this was actually the first year that I did that. What's your word?
So my word was action, and I'm kind of guilty of being stuck in that getting ready to get ready phase and not taking action. So that's probably why I chose the word, right? So my plan for 2020 was actually to take action in all the things that I was putting off or too scared to do. And a friend of mine says, instead of just talking the talk, let's walk the walk. Time to do that. And plus, I knew that I was retiring from the military this year, so I needed to take some serious action towards putting my dreams and goals to the test. The last month or so, I have been really focusing on my goals and what and who I need to be to accomplish them. But what was your word?
My word was actually create. And I don't even know how I came up with the word, but, I was just kind of sitting there and I decided it was going to be create because there were just so many things that I wanted to accomplish, but it required me to create something. And so I wanted to create a team that would help me grow as much as I help them grow, i.e. we have our masterminding team,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to create my blog that would help inspire others to find their own motivation and creativity. I wanted to create an accountability group that was really in it to win it. And I wanted, my biggest thing that I really wanted to create was an environment for my girls. As they're growing into little women in the making. I wanted to really focus on how to incorporate them into this new life of, transitioning into womanhood. And so even this week alone, I did a mommy and me challenge together where we focused on God's good grace, affirmations, and just the abundance of joy in life in general. And so just watching them throughout the week and watching them grow and their excitement has just like been so fulfilling.
Yeah, I've actually just saw some of the videos of the girls saying their affirmations, and it was just like so cute. And, I think that's really great that you guys are doing this exercise, this little challenge together, because I hope it resonates with them, even if they really don't probably remember it. But I think it's building on something. And so I want to just talk about you and I for a second. Like, we have grown a ton in the last year and we've pushed each other in taking action in both life and business. And so I'm really blessed to have someone like you in my life who has similar goals as me and has really helped keep me accountable. But I know we've really kept each other accountable, right?
Oh, I totally agree. I think, just even in the past few months, we've really held each other accountable the most. And as you stated earlier, we were on that in those phases of keep getting ready to keep getting ready to keep, but no action was being taken. And so, for us, one of the things that I think was on our action list, but we took no action was this podcast. And the reason behind it was that there's so many women who are seeking growth, who are reluctant to grow, and by creating this platform, it was just one of those ways that we really wanted to help other women grow. And so through our masterminding, we just held each other accountable that, hey, we're going to start it, we're just going to do it, and here we are.
And we've really had to keep each other on task to really get these episodes, recorded, and just finding time to really get on the same schedule. But speaking of growth, after our conversation the other day, we posed a question to our Facebook community, and we asked, why are people so reluctant to grow? And surprisingly, not surprisingly, the majority of the responses were because of fear, not wanting to leave a comfort zone. And people fear change. And I think part of that is also the people fear failure. And so John has another quote that, we talked about, and that was, most people are more comfortable with old problems than they are with new solutions. Can you break this down a little bit for us, Barbara?
Sure. And again, let me just say that this is my belief, right? I believe that, fear of failure is a major reason that folks don't want to allow themselves to grow. I think that fear blinds them from the possibilities and opportunities that life really has for them. Sometimes folks don't know where to start. And, like John says, they just stay put. It goes back to, even our previous podcast where we've talked about, people feel paralyzed. They don't know where to start. They don't have a plan. They don't know where to go. And so it just leaves them in a sense of content. Like, I can just be here and be okay.
Right. And I think we've all been guilty of being content with life and not wanting to risk the comfort, what we're comfortable with right now, with the fear of the unknown. And so we often don't have control over some of these changes, but we do have control over our own personal growth. And I think that's key. Growth can be super scary. And when we look at the what ifs, that's where we're usually getting discouraged, or what you're calling paralyzed. Um,
Yeah. And, I do think it's very important that, folks, change is inevitable, right? But growth is optional. And I think one of those fears that we sometimes have is that we're going to outgrow the current circle we're in, because those are the people we know. I mean, most of us have had friends for 5 and 10 years. I mean, if you just even, I think it's safe to say, Courtney, you could look back 5 years, I could look back 5 years. And our circle has personally changed because we've continued to grow where others are very content within their current circumstances.
And, I know I can go back, even 10 years ago. Let's talk about being content or not having dreams and goals. Like, I didn't have any, all of my dreams and goals were military related. Like, I didn't realize until 2 years ago, as I'm starting my transition out of the military, that I didn't really have any personal dreams or goals. Like, I didn't. And it was like a harsh reality for me. And so I think a lot of people people were like me or are like me that don't really have dreams and goals because they're so content within life. Like, this is what's comfortable. So, and like, let's just point out, like, if you are content and happy with where your life currently is, then I think we both can say that we're happy for you. Like, but for me and for you, and just because I'm going to speak on your behalf because we're besties, we want our growth to be continual. And so I actually have a lot of women come up to me and they tell me that, you know, they're trying to grow, they're trying to be more positive and work on their goals. And the people around them don't support them, or they have always something negative to say. So I think that's where, you know, understanding that you're outgrowing your circle comes into play.
Well, and let me just, throw something funny in here at you really quick, Courtney. I mean, if you just go back to when you were a kid and you wanted to be a zoologist, I mean, you had different goals, different friends, different aspirations, right? I mean, come on. So, at
Oh.
some point, I think one of the things that it's important to understand is that you're going to outgrow someone in your circle, and it's truly okay. If that person, if you're the person who is content where you are and you're living your best life, um, great. If you have a friend who continues to grow, then be their biggest cheerleader as they're on their journey to being and living their best life. Um, so in ending, I do want to share one last quote from John. And he says, in order to keep growing as you get older, you have to keep asking questions and you have to keep your standards high. So we thank you for listening. We hope that you'll join us on our next episode. Actually, as we get a little personal with Courtney on her next chapter after her retirement. And of course, as always, you can find our blogs at www.isparkleglitter.com and www.fearlesslyfreckles.com.